Uh, if you've met him before, then you know what to expect. If not, then this should be interesting. Aaron's background is very diverse. I think that's one of the reasons why his talks are so interesting, because sometimes the best programmers are the people who started out doing a lot of other things very seriously and then getting into code. And his talk is about bots. So, Aaron, over to you.
Hello. First of all, is Burpee Hari? I'll need you in a couple of minutes. So yeah, this screen. Hi, it's nice to be here. On the way here, I was watching the new Bourne movie on the plane, and this happened. They were in a hacker space, and hackers were hacking people, and they wanted to use SQL to corrupt someone's databases. It was pretty awesome. They were all hunched over. It was good stuff. Great movie. Check it out. It's actually really crappy. So this is my 4th time being in India in like 2 years now. I just keep coming back. You can't get rid of me. I haven't been cooking a lot of Indian food lately. I've been on a weird diet where I don't get to eat a lot of the good Indian food stuff. So sorry. I'm not quite the chef I used to be with Indian food. And I'm going to talk about some chatbots that I've been building to try and get more fit. These are the things that I bought off Fiverr for someone to draw for me, and they both have the same eyes. It's kind of creepy. So first of all, if you looked at the talk abstract, you might see a couple things that I might have lied about just a tiny bit. The first thing is actually the first line. I'm not in amazing shape, and I didn't use bots very much to get to the not amazing shape I'm in. So this is check. Can we get there we go. That feels good. We're good? Okay, yeah, so this is me. Second is actually the second line. I said I could do a handstand. Actually, I could do much more than a handstand. I actually can't do a handstand. I had a lot of expectations when I wrote the abstract about where I might be at the time that I gave the talk, and it turns out I wasn't quite there. I have goals that I create every year at the beginning of the year of what I might get done by the end of the year. And last year there were a lot of fitness-related goals. One was to be able to do 100 push-ups straight. Like one of them was to do 30 pull-ups. I think I'm at like 6 on a really, really good day. And 200 sit-ups and hold a handstand for 30 seconds. And I didn't quite make almost all of them. I had money-related ones. I had like relationship-related and family-related ones. And some of them I hit, but especially the fitness ones I really didn't even come close with. But the rest of the stuff in my abstract was totally true. I swear, it's totally true. So this talk is about kind of scratching your itch. And that might not be a saying here, so that probably sounds disgusting. What it means, where I come from, is if you have some sort of problem or pain, to try and solve it with the skills or some tools that you have that you know. And like for us, that might be to use Ruby or programming or just technology to try and solve problems that we find that we have. And I've been thinking a lot about fitness lately. When I was a kid, I was kind of chubby, and then I got like less chubby, and then I kept gaining the weight back and losing the weight again and gaining the weight back, kind of throughout my life. It's been so like I've always been very, very conscious of the way my body looks. I started, when was this? A few years ago, I started doing this program. It's like an app called Couch to 5K, where you are supposed to be just a slob eating chicken wings on your couch and watching TV, and then all of a sudden, in 8 weeks, you should be able to run 5K. I hated running, and I just started trying this thing, and it worked really, really well. I broke my foot one time through, so I got held back for a long time, and then I hurt my ankle, so I just actually finished the 5K again. I always start at like week 5 again. And I finished it just in time to compete in the RubyConf India 5K that happened yesterday. Good times. It was great. This was the beginning of the race. It turns out like this is actually the only face I can make. This was the middle of the race. This is the midpoint with my beautiful cheerleaders cheering me on. And here was the end. And who ran in the race at their first time to ever run in a race before? Are there hands? We got a few. It was my first time too. Like, awesome. There's a bunch of hands back there. Congratulations. Like, it was super fun. And so I'm going to talk now about an exercise that's kind of really hated. It's pretty well hated. It's actually used as it's punishment in the military. It's so horrible. It's called the burpee. It's kind of how I feel right now after eating lunch. It's really, really mean. It's a mean thing to do to people. Where's Hari? That's not a fair thing to say because there's a lot of Haris probably. There he is. So the way that Hari's going to help me, he's going to be my model. Maybe I'll do it with him. You got to come up to the stage, Hari. And so we'll do it together. I won't make you do it by yourself. But the burpee is an exercise where you squat down. Remember, you squat down, and then you jump. Squat down, and then you jump to this. You kick back. You go into a push-up. You push up, jump forward again, jump up like that. Thank you. Okay. So thanks, Hari. And that's just, that's happening up there. So I decided that the way that I would get fit is by building a chatbot that would make me reach doing 30,000 burpees in a year. So that's about an average about 81 a day. I actually had a workout in this app that I use upstairs a few hours ago that was 25 burpees and then 400-meter sprinting and then 50 squats, and you do that 3 times in a row. And I had to get the garbage from by the water outside in case I threw up because it was like, it's the most gnarly workout that I've done in a very, very long time. They don't look very hard, but then you actually start doing them, and your heart's beating like you've been sprinting for like 40 minutes. It's crazy. So I decided I will scratch my own itch by building a chatbot to teach me or to make me do burpees. So everyone likes a before picture and an after picture. The before, you look disgusting and sweaty, and like the lighting's bad. So here's my before picture. And so I've been working out for quite a while now. No, so here's kind of like, this is what I've looked like for the last years. I have kind of a muffin top, which is like when your side fat hangs over your pants and it looks like the top of a muffin. That's been for ages like that. This is a couple months ago. And the after pictures, we're going to show this first. So this is like in the last, since they told me that I was speaking here, like 6 weeks ago, I went on like a crazy diet and started working out a lot. And this is like my weight plummet to like down to 50, 70, what is that? I don't even know what I am anymore. 76 kilos or something. I've lost like 4.5 or 5 kilos in like that many weeks. And like this was upstairs yesterday. I just look really tough looking dude. And just to introduce myself real quick, I'm Mr. Cruz on Twitter. I mostly retweet stuff that I think is funny, and I don't really add anything to the conversation. That's me on stage. I build chatbots, mostly on the Messenger platform. I build them for ad agencies and for YouTube creators, and also for startups if they want something that's not like a mobile app or their web application. They want another interface to their application. I build those. I'm for hire, so if you know a startup that's interested, cool beans. So the reason that I think chatbots are interesting, first of all, a lot of people think that they're stupid. They think that chatbots have been around since the 60s and that they don't really solve any new problems. The thing is that I think that chatbots are really interesting because we have all of these messenger platforms right now. Like, this is from a little while ago. People know how to communicate on these messenger platforms. This is also old. Facebook Messenger has like over 1 billion users now. The user interface that people use to communicate with these, they know all the UI elements. They don't have to install any kind of applications. They just have to click on a link, and then they're talking to a chatbot like they're talking to their grandmother. And what I think is the best part, the very best part, is that I don't have to write any more JavaScript. And I guess I lied a second ago. That's not the very best part. This is the very best part. I don't have to touch CSS at all. I like to use old memes. And if you're wondering, maybe you don't know exactly what a chatbot is, or you've never built one before, kind of what what the process looks like. A chatbot is essentially just a web application. So you set up a webhook on your web application, and whichever platform you're using will send messages to that webhook. So it kind of looks like this. You have your client has or the user has a messenger app, and they write a message, and after they write the message, the messenger app will send a message to Facebook. So Facebook handles the message, it does whatever Facebook does to things, probably spies on everything, and then sends the message down to your application at the webhook that you set up with Facebook. They include a Facebook ID with it, so you know who the user is that is sending the message. So on the other end, you take that message, and you process it, and then you decide what to send back to the user. So they say, I want to know the weather in London. You then send them the weather in London. So you use the Facebook ID, you send a message with an HTTP client like Net HTTP or Typhoeus or HTParty, whatever you want to use in the Ruby world, using the Facebook ID to identify them, and then the message gets sent back down to the messenger client that the user is using, and they have a new message from your chatbot. And just rinse and repeat that over and over again. And there's some common features, I think, of all chatbots. Not all chatbots, but most chatbots that are interesting. They have to receive HTTP requests from this webhook. They need to take those, for example, like a Rails app, where you get a request to a URL, and then you can route that to a controller, and then an action on that controller. With a chatbot, you would be doing that by reading the text and parsing it, either by just using regular expressions or by using some sort of natural language processing, and then you would execute some kind of block or some kind of method based on how you match that up. They respond to the user, so you need some sort of an HTTP client. The data per platform has its own idea of kind of what this data they need to receive and what they're sending you. So having kind of universal clients are really good. And then what I think is the most interesting part of chatbot creation is this conversational state, where it's kind of, I think, besides the natural language processing, the hard part. So what I mean by a conversation, for example, so one of my bots that's out there in the wild, it's very, very useful. It's the burgers and beer bot. So if you're somewhere and you want to know where there's burgers and or beer close to you, you can just talk to this chatbot and it will tell you. And the conversation looks like this. So you get to the page, you're like, here's the burgers and beer bot. I want to get started. There's a button, and this button will start kind of the conversation. And this is how most Facebook Messenger style chatbots work. You click on the button, the bot says, hey, what's going on? I need to know your information I need to know where you are if I'm going to tell you where there's some burgers and beer. So you give it the location. I'm at Le Méridien in Kochi. And then it says, hey, what's going on? What do you want? So at that point, it needed to store the fact, it needed to store what my location was in some sort of a conversational state, in some kind of a context, in a state machine. It needs to know where we are at in the conversation, but it also needs to know where my location is. So if you have any kind of chatbot framework or anything that's interesting, it needs to know about state machines and sessions, because you need to know which user it is, and that. So we pick burgers. It tells us this place, which if anyone is from here, they're probably like, that's definitely not really a burger place because my burger bot sucks. And then you can look at more. And then you also need to know the state of the list. If you say, yes, I want to see more, you need to know what page you're on. So that goes back into this context. So I built a pretty simple framework in Ruby for building bots because I don't want to build this conversational thing over and over and over again. The actual burger bot is built with Elixir. If you want to see some horrendous Elixir code, it's really someone who's like, I'm learning Elixir. It's a pretty disgusting code base. It's on my GitHub. There'll be a link to it at the end of the talk. But maybe if you're trying to get into Elixir and you want to learn the wrong way, then it's a good sample for you. So let's take a look for a second at some of the framework code. I don't know if people can see it in the back, but we have this GET request. This is all of the HTTP request handling code that I have in the whole framework. This is all you need. All I'm handling is Facebook Messenger right now, but you really just have a GET request, which is required when you set up a new webhook. Facebook sends a message to make sure you're you, so you pretty much only use it one time per domain name, so maybe just once. And then there's the post request. And the post request handles all incoming requests from Facebook. So this is the interesting part. Like, this is pretty much the whole part of this HTTP part, is it takes the payload, it parses it into JSON, into a hash, and then it just sends it to the framework. So then we're done with thinking about Sinatra. Then we're just inside of the framework. So my Burpee Trainer bot, we can look at some of the code for it. There's the start, you create a class, and then you include a handler, a messenger handler. I'd use a lot of DSL kind of stuff because I pretty much built this framework for myself, and I like the way that this reads as far as conversations. I normally would be against DSL creation, especially at the beginning, but I don't really, if you want to talk to me about that later, that's good. I don't really have time to get into it right now because I'll get pretty deep. But I also break my own rules. You have this enable get started where Facebook needs to be told that you want to get started button. So that's what the first thing does. And then this helper, it is called when someone actually clicks on that button, and it ends up starting a conversation, which we'll get into in a second. There's a here method, and you can give it a regular expression or a string, and it matches on from the outer walls of the conversation, essentially. So someone sends a message. If you're not in a conversation, then it will yield to one of these here methods if it matches on it. So it's like, okay, I heard hi or some kind of a greeting, so I'm going to start a conversation, or I'm going to onboard them if we've never communicated before. Here's a default here. This is a fallback if you don't catch anything with your parsing. And the most interesting part of this is this getIntent method. And what this does, there's a lot of natural language processing as a service platforms out there. There's one called Wit AI. There's one called API AI. Facebook owns Wit AI. Google owns API AI. There's some other ones. And what they are is you can send them text, and they will respond to you with what they think the person was trying to say. And they give you a data structure with that. So for example, you train this application that you're creating inside of Wit AI with different kinds of sentences, like what's the weather in London, how's it going with weather in Kochi, just different ways that you can ask the same question. And then you can say the intent of that is to get weather. That's the intent of the user. And the location is Kochi or London or whatever. And you keep doing more and more of these, and eventually it starts knowing pretty well what your intent is and what the place that you're trying to get is. There is a pizza example. There's a lot of examples. But this, so what it sends you back is a data structure with something like intent with a confidence of 70%, that it's get weather, and then the location, a confidence of like 80% that it's London. And then you can decide in your code, just looking at those things, say, if the confidence is over 70, then I believe that this is the actual intent, and then you just work on that intent. So this is what the framework would fall back to if you couldn't just match on text. I think it's pretty cool. Here's an action. This is something like if you need to remind the user to do something, like the burpee bot needs to remind you every day to do your burpees. So this would be, you'd call this from a rake task or something. It would jump inside of the framework and then send it to the user. And then here is the conversation. So I have, this is probably really hard to read in the back. Maybe not, people with amazing eyesight in the back. This is a conversation. You can name it. It doesn't matter. And then you create steps. And the steps happen like the first time the conversation starts, you're in step 1. I'm creating some different text with buttons, some really Facebook-related stuff. And then you call conversation next step at the end of it, which brings you to the next step. And then, so the next time the user sends something, you get this next step, you get their message inside of the bot thing, and then you can talk back to them and continue on with these steps after steps. You can repeat steps if you need to, because sometimes you're like, I have no idea what you said. I'm going to have things where you can have multiple fallbacks for one part of a conversation, so you're not like, I do not understand what you mean, I do not understand what you mean. You can have kind of more personalized, I actually really needed your age, and then I didn't get that. What's your age? Or something like that, so you can have kind of a list. There's going to be some nice additions to it. And then this is kind of what a conversation looks like together, and then Further down, there's more steps if you want to. So, have any of you guys, have any of you people ever used a bot before? Who's used a bot? Who's used a bot? Any hands? We got some. There's some people who have used bots. Have you, those who have used bots, have you ever argued with a bot before? Couple arguments. Have you ever sworn at a bot before? Have you ever gotten actually angry at a bot? So there's this bot that I use called Poncho. Poncho is a weather bot, pretty useless. I emotionally, I have issues with this bot. I kind of actually hate it. So it sends me messages sometimes like this, and I don't look at my feed for a while, and then I look down and I see this, and it like actually makes me kind of angry. And one thing that it does, so it's not just weather, but it also like lets you say, hey, what's the weather like tomorrow for running? And then it will give you, like at 8 p.m., it'll be, tomorrow morning looks like crap. Every day it says. I live in Vienna right now, and it's like negative 8 degrees Celsius, and Poncho every day is like, the weather sucks. You don't get to run. You suck. Like So anyway, one time I got fed up with Poncho. It was actually after this, and I sent him kind of a mean message. So Poncho is kind of sassy, and that's how Poncho responded to me. And there's a dark side of me, I guess. And I responded back to Poncho in kind of a weird way. I don't know what I was trying to say there. And then Poncho kind of was like, dude, you suck. Like, Poncho hates me too, I think. So I went deeper. I went deeper inside of my soul to hate Poncho and wrote this. And then Poncho comes back with this. Like, he constantly makes me feel bad. Constantly. And then this... And this kind of went on for a while. That's a guy in a poncho, and it kind of it continued. This is what I do regularly. I don't really go out or do anything. I just fight with bots. Another guy in a poncho. So yeah, that's the whole thing. If you want to see kind of some of the resources from here, you can go to computer.computer. Or you can go to botemoji.ws, and you'll see a crappy bot that I made with one of those bot building frameworks. They have like ChatFuel and Flex.io or something like that. You can do it without coding. So I quickly made a bot without coding to not impress people that I give talks in front of about chatbots. So go to one of those things, and thank you, and I hope to come back in another year, probably, maybe. Thank you.
Oh.